Great to have you all here. I'm Sam, co-founder and CEO of Axle AI. And in today's webinar, we're going to be talking about some very powerful combinations of ingest and media management and AI that are possible as described by our two main presenters today. Those will be Luke Ernie from Imagine Products. They're the company that develops ShotPut Pro and ShotPut Studio. And our own Elisa Hecker, who is head of customer success at Axle AI. And we'll be talking about how kind of the MAM side can take the incoming media and metadata and work with it from there. It's been a really exciting, actually, few months. We jointly demoed at NAB. So the Imagine Products folks had kind of a mini booth in our booth, and they were busy the whole show, as were we. It was, I think, very informative to see just how many people in this industry use ShotPut, both Pro and Studio. And it's a hugely popular solution that is almost synonymous with ingesting camera media. So when you go on set, whether it's in television or film, or they're always like, "Oh yeah, of course I use ShotPut." So we're just super pleased to be partnering with Imagine. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Luke, who's going to explain and show all the cool new features of ShotPut Studio.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam, for that introduction. So as you mentioned, I am Luke Ernie, and I've been the marketing director here at Imagine Products for about 4 years now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and give you guys a look at ShotPut Studio. So if you are not fully familiar with ShotPut Studio, but you are familiar with ShotPut Pro, they look very similar. I'm going to take you through the interface really quickly just to give you a good idea of where everything is, and then we'll get into the main focus for the webinar today, which will be going over the newest automation feature in ShotPut Studio, which was actually released yesterday. So if you are a current user, you can use check for updates in your app and get started with that build immediately. So looking at the interface here, you have on the left side at the very top, S3 buckets. So we do connect with any S3 provider. So right here I have Wasabi, Storj, and Backblaze, but you can also set up with AWS or another generic bucket as long as you have the credentials from them. And then underneath that, this is just the favorites header where you can add any number of files or locations that you use consistently, and then all your connected media that we get from Finder. And then down here in the bottom left, you'll see this is the automations page. So it says automations, but this will also be where you find your presets in that section. And then this center pane is going to be dynamic. It's where you're going to do the bulk of your work. And then over here, once I start doing some jobs, you'll see they get added to this queue. So let's go ahead and go up to this toolkit here. And if you're not familiar with ShotPut Studio, it takes everything that's in ShotPut Pro and then adds a whole lot of functionality on top of that. So you can see up here, this workflow section is where we'll be spending most of our time today. But underneath that, these are more standalone tools. So we have copy, which is going to be what you see in simple mode in ShotPut Pro. Sync, which is also has the compare tool, allows you to compare and sync two directories. And then there's standalone report and MHL verification, and then advanced search and standalone transcoding. So that just gives you a good idea of all the functionality that ShotPut Studio has, including what's in ShotPut Pro. So now we'll go into the workflow section, and you'll see there's preset and automation. Essentially, an automation is your copy, transcode, and report presets all chained together, and I'll show you how that works here in a second. And after you chain them together, you can start a job just like you would normally, and it's going to do every operation that you put in that automation from start to finish without any user interaction. So we'll be looking at all that here in a second. So just clicking on automation where we already are, and you can see I've already got a few made. I'm going to be making one from scratch here in a little bit, but for now, let's just click on this BCAM workflow. And you can see this is the automation. This is what we call automation pipelines. So this is the full pipeline, and then each of these branches is what we call a pipeline path. So to start, you have your BCam ingest. So this is going to be a copy job denoted by this icon here in the upper right. And you can see transcode has a different icon, just so you can stay organized with which of these little tokens is which. And you can see that BCam ingest is going to be the starting point. So with some queue automation we have, such as starting a job as soon as an item enters the queue, and even adding a card that you plug in automatically to the queue as soon as it's recognized by Finder. You can pretty much set this up to just you plug in your card after you pull it from the camera, and all of this is going to happen automatically. And I'll be showing that here in a second. So you've got your BCam ingest, and then from that, it's going to do a cascading copy to a BCam backup. And at the same time, it's going to do this transcode that is titled proxy uploads, and it's going to be transcoding it to H.265 here. And then it's going to be copying it to this bucket titled for edit. And then from the BCam backup, it's just going to do a higher res transcode. And you can see you can edit all of these directly in this view. To do that, you just click on the name. So BCam backup, high res. You notice high res is actually set to H.265. So I'm going to go to video and change that to ProRes. All right. So I'll be showing how to set one of these up here in a second, but that gives you a good idea of what it actually looks like. And when I drag some footage in here, oh, got to turn the preset on first, and click start. And you'll see all this is going to appear in the right, and these jobs are just going to start running automatically. So if we look up here at the top, this is going to be your main automation. So by selecting that, you can view progress for all of these sub jobs at once without having to click on them individually. So same as when you would click on a sub job here in the upper left, you have the name, the type, and you can click this drop-down arrow to view some metadata about them. And then you have the progress for every sub job. And by using these drop-down arrows, you can view individual progress for each step in the sub job. So that's one way of looking at things. Down here at the bottom, you have your automation flow, which is going to pretty much mirror this setup here, except you're going to be able to view live progress as it's happening. So you can see down here, BCam ingest already finished. So did BCam backup. I'm only doing about 3 gigabytes for this testing purpose. But you can see this proxy transcode is running right now. And as soon as one of these files finishes transcoding, it's going to be replicated as soon as it's available. So with one of the biggest advantages of doing automation as outside of just not having to do all these jobs individually is that it's actually going to be faster because it already knows what's coming next. So for example, with this BCam ingest, if it was a longer job, say a couple hundred gigabytes full of a bunch of different files, as soon as one file is finished replicating, it's not going to wait for this whole job to finish before it starts this transcode. It's going to, as soon as it gets that first file, start this transcode. So there's no waiting time, there's no downtime. As soon as a file is done with the previous step, it's passed along and is able to start going on the next step. So as this job finishes, well, actually, let me go back to this automation flow because I want to show a couple other ways of viewing your automation. So this is time-based. So you can see BCam ingest finished very quickly, and proxy upload started right at the same time, but it's still going, so it's going to show as blue. And this just gives you a good overview of your automation just in a different way than this one does. And then finally, the last way of viewing it is text-based. So every time any of these steps right here starts or finishes, it's going to be logged here. And after all these jobs finish, you can right-click in this menu, and it'll give you the option to export this log as a TXT and share it. So while this job finishes, I'm going to show you how to make an automation. So I'm going to click this plus down here in automation, pretty straightforward. And this is going to be our Axle AI upload. And you can give it a color if you want. That's purely organizational, so I'm just going to leave it as the standard blue. And you'll see this is what the screen looks like. Each of these tokens down here is a preset that I've already created. I'm going to be creating one preset today, so I won't get into creating transcode and report presets, but I will create a copy one so you can kind of see what that process looks like and how once you create one, it'll then appear in this menu. So it's pretty straightforward creating these pipelines. We wanted to make it as simple as possible for users. So we've got our ACAM ingest token here, and we're just going to drag it and drop it. And you can see once you drop it in here, a representation of it appears, something we call a token. And you can see in the upper left, this is a representation of the token destination, its name. As I mentioned, this icon is the job type. And then for different types, it's going to show different information here. But for a copy, it's going to show the verification type and then the report type. So by default, it's going to make reports off of your global presets. But if you want, you can override that by dragging one of these report tokens down here on top of it, and you'll see different sections highlight based on where you put it. If you're going to drag it to this bottom part, it's going to add it as a subjob. So it's basically just going to override the reports, your global report settings, and make some reports. These ones are specific for the director/DOP. So that's our initial ingest. From there, we're going to do a backup, a transcode, and then send those transcodes to Axle AI. So let's go ahead and add the ACAM backup. And you'll see in the upper right, if the upper right highlights, it's going to add it to the right. Upper left, it's going to add it to the left. Pretty straightforward. So we'll add it to the right. And then we'll add this dailies transcode to the same place. And you'll see it's going to create two different paths. So now I'm going to show you how to create the Axle AI upload preset. So you'll just close out of this menu, go to workflows, preset, and you'll want to make sure you're in copy. I already have some presets created, as you saw from the automation view, and they are organized into these folders here. It's pretty easy to create folders. You just right click and create new folder, just like you would in Finder. And that can help you stay a little bit organized, especially if you want to do it by shoot or even by shooting day or by camera if you're working with different cameras. There's a lot of different options, but just so you don't have 10 or 20 presets all listed down here that you're scrolling through and looking through. So we'll just you can right click and do create new preset that way, or click the plus icon and call it Axle AI upload and click create. So you can see if you're familiar with ShotPut Pro, a copy preset is going to be exactly the same as what's seen in ShotPut Pro. You're going to just add your destination. So I'm going to add this Axle AI watch folder titled Amsterdam. And you can add an output folder structure if you'd like. I'm not going to go into that right now. And you can also override verification. But for now, I'm going to keep that all the same. Close out of this and then go back to automation. Click on Axle AI upload. And you'll see in copy, I've now got Axle AI upload token, and I'm going to add it to the right of ACAM. Oops. Add it to the right of dailies. That is how you remove one. If you were interested in that, you just right click on a token and hit remove. So I'm going to go ahead and start this job, and then while it runs, I'm going to do a little bit more. Ooh. That is something that I didn't mean to do that, but you can do multiple automations at once just by having them both turned on. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that one and remove it. But that is an option if you'd like to run more than one automation at a time, similar to how other presets work in ShotPut Pro or ShotPut Studio. Just have them both turned on and it'll start them both. So let me turn off BCam workflow. And I do have automatically start job upon entry to queue turned on. So that's why when I drag this into the queue, the job's automatically started without having to click the start button here at the upper right. And you can also have the source drive automatically ejected upon job completion. So that's a good way if you want to turn all those queue automations on and you're using automation, you basically turn on your automation, plug in your card, and then everything's going to happen and your card's going to be ejected at the end and you can reformat it and put it right back in the camera without really any user interaction once you set this up. So it's really cool stuff. So all this is running right now. I'm going to go back to the Axle AI upload and just show you some of the right-click actions that you can do. So one thing you can do, if you really are into aesthetics, you can do something called extend preset color to path. So you're just going to right click. So if I right click on dailies here and click that, it's just going to change this color and of this preset to what was came before it. So if I did that for ACAM ingest here, it's going to change everything to green. So if you look at something like this ACAM workflow, you can see the initial ingest is green, and then each of these paths is a different color and can help you kind of picture things visually with like each of these kind of being a different process. So as you may be kind of noticing, this can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. It can be as simple as just 2 copies in a row if you want to just do cascading copies. That's now an option using this tool. Or you can make it something a little bit more complicated, such as what I just showed here, where it's got one step going into another, going into 2 more, and then this one's going into 3 steps. And it really just allows you a lot of customization and can just let you build your workflow how you want it in a very easy fashion. So some other right-click options, you can add sections to the pipeline using right-click. I find it easier to use drag and drop, but it is an option to you. And the last thing I want to talk about is transcode sub-activities. So if you prefer, like right now, this transcode, if I click on it here, this one right now is place with source. So you can either if you turn that off, it's going to be place all your transcodes with the root of Pro G40, just like it would when you're kind of hard coding a destination. But if you do place with source, it is going to place the files adjacent to the camera originals. We found that's something some users prefer to have the camera original and then right next to it, the proxy. You can also do in a folder right next to the camera original or in a subfolder at the source root. And if you choose that option, it's going to give you the option to name that folder. And with transcodes, you can do custom file renaming by adding a prefix or a suffix. So by default, with this setting turned on, it's going to add underscore proxy to the end of all your transcodes. So you can view those separately from your camera originals. So as I mentioned, you can, with that setting turned on, you can add a transcode directly onto a copy, and it's going to appear as one step over here rather than them being separately. So let me remove that sub-activity. And the last thing I want to do is when I upload this to Axle, it's going to be for my editors. So I do want to add editor reports onto this, and it's going to give them some good metadata in a report that they can browse through. And I'll extend preset color to path one last time. So you can see over here, this job is now completed. You can see these dailies are now going to be uploaded to Axle AI. And I will pass it off to Elisa to go over the Axle AI portion of this. But before she gets started, I do want to take this time to answer some questions if there are any. So let me check the
Yeah,
chat.
actually, Luke, one question that came in, which we
Mhm.
kind of answered in the chat, was, when is this available, or has it become
Mhm.
available? We mentioned that that was yesterday. I don't know if you have a link to the press release. I have the content of the press release, but I thought if you've got a link to it for people to read, you may want to paste that in the chat as
Yeah, I
well.
will. Let me get that right after I finish this up
Yeah.
and Elisa starts hers. I will paste a link there.
Yeah, no worries, no
In
worries.
case you're interested in pricing, ShotPut Studio is $299 perpetual licensing. We do offer trade-in options. So if you're interested in trading in your ShotPut Pro license, or if you do have TrueCheck back when that was available, you can trade that in as well. Unfortunately, ShotPut Studio is Mac only at this time. There really aren't plans to make it PC at this moment. That may change in the future, but for right now, it is Mac only. And I do want to add a promo code here. If you would like to purchase ShotPut Studio, you can use this promo code that I just sent to chat, and it'll give you 15% off your order of $299. So if you do think of any further questions before the end of this demo, we'll be taking questions again at the end. So now I'll pass it off to Elisa.
Oh, and actually, another question just came in when you were saying that. Does it have FTP connections, possibilities to upload to remote servers?
Yes, that is a great technical question. Um, I would reach out to our support team on that because they will give you more information than I could on uploading to remote servers. I, I, without giving a definite answer, yes, but reach out to support at imagineproducts.com because they will be able to answer more technical questions and you'll be able to speak directly with our dev team on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it probably goes without saying, but it handles cloud storage directly. So you can
Yes.
upload to obviously the types of cloud storage you have listed in the UI. Oh, actually, I do have one minor question, which is
Mhm.
how recent does the Mac have to be? Does it have to be an M series Mac or can it be Intel and how far back?
Um, let's see. I forget the exact specifications for macOS 26 on whether it supports Intel, but ShotPut Studio is macOS 13 and up. We do recommend at least 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is, I think, the majority of Mac machines have at least 8. So, yeah, macOS 13 and up. And I think Intel definitely supports macOS 13, 14, and
Yep.
15. And I'm
I
not
think
sure if
they're
they're
even
supporting
supporting it in
26, but
26. They are. I think
okay.
26 will be the last one with Intel support, from what I understand. Uh, Anyone who has more granular detail from WWDC may want to chime in
Hmm.
the chat, but I'm pretty sure the Intel machines are still supported, except for the really old Intel. I mean, like if you have a Mac Mini from 2012,
Yeah.
you're probably out of luck. But anything, last 5, 7 years, the last few generations of Intel, and certainly anything in the Mac Pro and MacBook Pro series, because they tend
Hmm.
to keep support going for longest on those. You should be absolutely fine.
Yeah. And I will say, with transcoding, especially, it does use the GPU. So that may slow the transcoding process if you're on like
Of course.
older hardware. But as far as being able to run the app, it's OS dependent. So as long as your hardware can run macOS 13 and up, then you should have no problem running the application. It just performance may vary.
Got it. Got it. Oh, one last question. Well, Elisa, we'll get to you in just a second.
Okay.
Uh, does the
Yes.
transcoder handle raw codecs? Go ahead.
Yeah, for Simone, yes, you can deactivate licenses from our web portal or you can email our support team and we'll do that for you. Um, so yes, you can deactivate it that way and then activate it on another computer. If you just need to change the computer and the original is not like unaccessible, you can deactivate like straight from the first machine and then reactivate on like a second machine. But if the first machine like crashes or breaks for some reason, you can still do that through the web portal. Yes, it does handle all the raw codecs you mentioned. It does handle. The only raw that it does not handle right now is Apple ProRes RAW because we're still waiting on the Apple certification for that. But that will be coming in the next month or so. All the ones you listed are good though.
There's one last question. How does transcoding speed compare to other solutions like Resolve? I don't know if you want to answer that or
Okay. Yeah. We right now we're seeing about 70 to 80% of resolve speed, so it is slower, but we are reworking the transcoding pipeline. So expect in the next month or so to meet resolve standards on replication or transcoding performance. And we're also, if you are an Avid user, we are adding Avid codecs in the next month or so as well. Those are not currently available but they will be. Yep. To answer your question, Eric, those are coming in the next month or so.
All right, over to you, Elisa.
Yeah, and we'll definitely leave some time for more questions at the end. I am going to do like a 15-minute demo and then we'll leave some time for additional questions. Um, Let me go ahead and share my screen before I tell you a little bit about what we do at Axel. We help video teams streamline their workflows. We have several different products, including a cloud media asset management tool with AI. We have a workflow builder, and obviously we're going to be focusing on our on-prem system today that's called Axel AI. And you're currently looking at the login page. I'm just going to go ahead and log in. Just as a heads up, I'm showing you the remote workflow. So I'm logging into my system with my credentials, and you can see the files that were ingested by Luke directly on the volume. Just to give you like a very, very quick introduction in case you don't know what the way Axel works. Axel is continuously scanning specific folders or volumes that you've set up to be cataloged by Axel. So anytime a file is dragged or uploaded or ingested there, Axel is going to pick it up and create a proxy for it so that you have like an echo of that volume in this web interface. So Axel is going to be continuously looking at those volumes or folders and making sure that we have a loyal echo of whatever's on your storage on this web interface so that users can navigate through the files, perform searches, select the content they need to use for an edit, and basically just make it very, very simple for them to find whatever it is they're looking for. So on the left sidebar, you're going to find what we call catalogs, Amsterdam, Axel NAV, training clips. Those are what we call catalogs, so like a top level folder. And you'll notice that when I expand the arrows right next to them, you can see the entire folder structure down there. And that is the exact same structure that the storage has, because Axel is basically just echoing exactly what's on there. We're storage agnostic, so it's not relevant to us what the storage is. We can catalog many different types of centralized storage, cloud storage, and both the MAM and the AI tools that we provide run on-prem. So if there's any security concerns with IT, you don't really need to worry too much about that because everything will be kept within your network. Unless obviously you would want users to access it remotely, like I'm doing right now. Through a web browser, I can just browse through my content, perform searches, select files, etc., etc. So once the files are ingested, I have my proxies. I can scrub through the files or the thumbnails and get a little preview of what's in there. I can see the content in a grid view like I'm doing now, or switch over to a list view where I can choose, how I want to sort out my files. I can choose different columns here, and then I can also just sort out by location, by file name, and I'm gonna go back to my grid view now. So the way we make it very easy for you to find exactly what you're looking for is by simplifying the tagging process with AI. So you'll notice that when I select an asset, I can see all its data on the right sidebar. So at the very top, I'm going to find the more basic metadata, such as frame rate, duration, file size, it. And if I scroll down, I can also find all the technical data that Axel picks up. It's color compression, camera data, it's just any sort of information we can find that's already ingrained in the asset will be shown here and will be searchable as well. Most importantly, you can build custom metadata schemas like this one that will help complement the AI there might be things like cameraman, things that you might want to be able to tag manually. That's where this sort of schema comes in, and you can customize it. You can select the field names, the field types, and not only can you tag the files individually, but you can also do it in a batch. So that just makes it very easy for people that don't necessarily have the time to go through each file individually and assign specific information. They can just select their entire page of assets or even an entire folder and edit that metadata once. After I hit OK, now I will have that data ingrained in all those assets and make it really easy to search for them in the future. So that's the custom metadata, and Obviously, we're called Axel AI for a reason. We will provide, or more, you can kind of pick and choose between different AI modules. Like I said before, our AI engine runs on-prem, so you don't need to worry about data being uploaded or downloaded anywhere. It is all going to be done using your hardware. Some of the things we can find include face recognition, scene understanding, object recognition, transcription, optical character recognition, and I'm just going to open one of these files and give you an example of that. Um, Give me one second here. So for the proxies, because it's using your hardware, if you want to train it on specific people or objects or logos, you absolutely can. The engine will come with a preset database of objects and logos and people it can find, but you can absolutely train it on your own people. You'll notice that there is a module called Scene Understanding, which I think is particularly helpful for people that have a lot of B-roll and they want to be able to find, for example, hey, I want to see a file of a crowd of people or a concert or someone wearing a red dress. The descriptions that the scene understanding module gives you enable what is known as a natural search. So with all the descriptions that you are given here, like you can see there are people walking and riding bikes on the street, there is a bicycle. You can do things like search for specific things like I want to see like a crowd, or you can think of more complex searches as well. I will enable the contextual search there and let it run through my entire media library. It will show me not just the files where it's finding the actual crowd, but the exact part in the timeline where it's finding that as well. So you'll notice that I can then just click there and it will take me exactly to that point in the timeline. So what that can help you do is basically just make select, so you can grab in and out points and then send that over to a bin where the editor can pick up that part of the clip and send it over to the bin to start editing with. A bin for us is like a project area. So you can use bins to gather footage or collect footage that you then want to send over to the editor to work with. So that's the scene understanding module. We also do face recognition, object recognition, logo recognition, and optical character recognition. And you'll notice that there's different things under the player window. It's all time-based, so it will mark the in and out points of where those things are appearing. It makes it really easy for the editor to pick up. It is important to note, though, that Axel doesn't actually trim your files, just to kind of finish the whole workflow from the moment you're ingesting to the moment you're exporting and edit. I wanted to quickly show the Premiere panel. And quick note, it's also available in After Effects, InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop, and it will excuse me, recovering from a flu. And so what you can do from the panel is get a toned down version of Axel. You know how some editors don't really like going outside their normal workflows? Well, with this panel, they can just go browse through Axel without even exiting Premiere. So they'll have their catalogs, they can perform searches, they can use this panel on site, or if you want to set it up, they could also access it remotely. And the panel will make it super simple for the editor to find those bins and import them into Premiere. Now, because I'm working remotely, it is going to notify me that the storage is remote, and I can choose what I want to work with. Do I want to download the original file, or do I want to download the proxy file that Axel creates? Another quick note, we also set up editing proxies in some cases where the customers want something that's in between the low-res and the original file. And so what Axel will do is it will bring over the bin with all the corresponding in and out points, the subclip names, any metadata that was added in Axel will be shown here. The AI data is searchable as well. And so that just makes it very easy for the editor to pick up, see all the markers, in and out points, and we do not actually trim the file. So the editor has total freedom to still change and edit those in and out points and still work with the files. We also don't change the file names, even if the editor is working off the proxies. So that should make it really simple to just normally relink to the original media once they're back in the office, or if someone else wants to do it in the office. Um, so that's the bin. And yeah, I mean, I can already see some questions in the chat. So I'm just gonna read a little bit. Let me see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a few features that I didn't really mention today, but just know that there's other things you can do with the software. You can use it to share content if you want to. It will help you review files with external people. These links can be shared, and the guests can preview the file, post time-based comments, change the approval status. So that's just, there we go, a link that the users can provide. Um, in cases where we get specific requests from customers where they want Axel to automate certain workflows, we will use our no-code workflow automation tool called Connector. We won't really dive any deeper into that today, but if there's any interest in that, we're happy to set up separate calls and just go over that. Um, yeah, I just want to leave some time for questions, and that's Axel. Sam, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. One thing that's worth bringing up probably is I typed something about this in the chat, but everything you just saw was in a browser. So it actually can uh, be viewed from almost any computer, even iPads or anything that runs a modern web browser. We then have plugins like the Premiere panel or the floating desktop app that works with Final Cut and Resolve so that you can search from there and bring things into your timeline. And the overall concept is to try and keep this very open and multi-user because invariably these kinds of media management uses are, multi-user applications. Often there's several editors, producers, assistant editors, and often social media people also. In fact, I would say the number one driver of demand for Axel the last few years has been this interesting synergy between social media and video. Up until 3 or 4 years ago, social media was mostly text and images, but nowadays it's more and more video. And so those people, whether it's in a corporate context or university or government or sports, they're all like, I need that clip of that guy doing that thing. And they need to start being able to search for that because it's buried within thousands of hours of footage that were shot for any number of reasons. So um, it's interesting. Archives used to be fairly quiet places, and last year's footage used to just stay in the can. And now it's like, I need to be able to search everything because we need to find the best clip to push out for this post this afternoon. Let's see.
Looking at the question, Sam,
Yeah, go ahead.
for Axel, I don't think has been answered. Is it possible to create custom fields that are mandatory to fill in?
Interesting. So mandatory is a little extreme because with Axel, everything that it catalogs on the file system, it's going to show. So bottom line is if the file is there, we're not going to like prevent showing it just because someone hasn't filled in some field. However, with Connector, you can easily build a workflow where something will not be approved for use unless certain fields are filled in. That's a very straightforward use of the Connector workflow automation, which in a lot of ways is very much like the ShotPut Studio workflow tool, but kind of on steroids. It has interfaces for databases, spreadsheets, messaging, transcoding, kind of the whole nine yards. And so when you're building a workflow, you can say, I want you to check these fields, update that, send someone a message, these kinds of things. So it's pretty powerful. Um, there's another question that just went in the chat
Yeah.
from Patra Pruek. If I could load the file and do the proxy at the same time, it would be very cool. And that is, in fact, exactly what we're talking about here because ShotPut Studio can create both those resolutions when it's copying in a standard workflow. And then we can pick up the proxy from a watch folder and the high res gets cataloged so that we don't have to start making the proxy later. If that's Luke, you may want to show that. I don't know, but if you have a workflow generating like low resolution versions of media, is that something
Hmm.
you can show?
Yeah. Give me just a second. A follow-up question to the last question that just got posted in the chat. Do you mean like kind of like a still image from like kind of like how we have we take thumbnails? Okay. Currently, that is not something we offer, but if you would like to reach out to our support team, we're always open to user feedback. And so I'd like to get kind of some more details on how you would expect that to operate. Or you can, so either support at imagineproducts.com or you can reach out to me directly at luke at imagineproducts.com. And I'd love to get some more information on kind of the UI you would expect for that. Um, so
Yeah.
in terms of um, the doing the low res proxy, um, so let's see. I mean, this is pretty much this is the workflow I showed earlier. It's pretty much going to get you what you want because um, it's going to do it as H.264, and you can change that to H.265 if you'd like. You can also, so here in video settings, you can change the dimensions, frame rate, whatever you want to get the exact specifications of the proxy that you want. You can also do add time codes and watermarks. So you can see if I click on this preview here, I have the file name and the time code added here in the upper left and right. And you can also add a LUT to these as well. So really everything you need to make your proxies and get those to Axel. And then Axel will already have the proxies and can just immediately start cataloging it for you. Please let me know if that didn't answer the question though.
Any other? Will we be joining the coming IBC? Very good question.
Yes.
Yes, we will. Axel has a booth in Hall 7. And actually, the Imagine folks, I don't know, Luke, do you have plans to be?
Mhm. Yes, I will be there. Somebody from our team for sure will be there, probably doing at least a demo in Axel's booth. And we will also be doing demos with a few other partners, and we'll be taking meetings in the IABM meeting room. So we'll send out more information on that probably in August, maybe even late July. But yes, somebody from our team will definitely be there.
By the way, great questions, everybody. These have been really incisive, and obviously
Yeah.
people are pretty deep into this stuff. Um, it is, I think, a major step. And both companies actually. In the last year, Axel has introduced like the scene understanding and a lot of the customizable model-based AI. This is now kind of our third generation of our own AI for our MAM. And unlike almost every other MAM vendor, we develop the AI in-house. It is a mix of things that we develop and open source, but what's cool about it is it's modular. So let's say you need a specialized model, and we're seeing more and more of this. You want to be able to distinguish between different kinds of trucks. Or actually, we have a number of oceanographic customers that want to be able to tell between different kinds of fish or corals or what have you. Like there's a standard format called Onyx, ONNX, which was originally developed for NVIDIA, but now also supports the Mac M3 and M4 processors. So if you want to build your own model in Onyx to do the specialized things that you need and combine it with our scene understanding and semantic search and transcription and face recognition, you can absolutely do that. And what it's turning into is more of a Swiss Army knife over time, where like people use AI to do an awful lot of stuff. Tagging is just the beginning, but obviously more specialized tagging and then the semantic search. So it's really making unnecessary a lot of the manual tagging that used to be the sticking point for MEMS and DEMS because no one ever has time to do that. And as I made clear in one of the interviews we did at NAB, it's like this is one kind of AI that is not taking away jobs because no one ever had the time to do it before anyway. It's not like people are sitting at home crying because, they wanted to spend all day tagging and now they lost their job to AI. So it's a much needed function that in general nobody had the time to do before.
There's one last question, it looks like, to you, Sam, in chat.
Yes. Axle AI can be running on-prem as well. Absolutely. Not only as well, but 90+% of our customers run it on premise. So everything that you saw in the browser there, that was a browser connected to another computer running on premise. We use a technique called reverse proxy to allow you to log into somebody else's Axle at another premise. But almost every Axle server in the world today, and there are hundreds of them, is an on-premise server. So what kinds of specs, CPU, GPU, to run it smooth and fast? Very good question. Basically, the more cores, the better, the more RAM, the better. Axle kind of grew up running on Mac Minis. The Mac Minis have gotten a lot more powerful. Today, we recommend, you know, really anything in the Mac Mini family, but do be sure and configure it with a 10 gigabit network interface because Axle has to catalog off of storage, and that takes a lot of network traffic. And we recommend ideally 24 to 48 gigs of RAM. Now, one of the reasons you may want to have that RAM is for the heavy transcoding tasks, but also we have now the ability to do scene understanding and semantic search on the Mac, and that does take extra RAM. So I would say really any Mac Mini or Mac Studio with 10 gigabit networking and 24 gigs or more of RAM. On the Intel side, we run in Ubuntu Linux, and there you'd want to have, an Intel i7 or i9. You could do any of the AMD families, and you want to have at least 32 and really preferably 64 gigs of RAM or more. The final requirement is that if you're running a lot of our AI functions, especially starting with the scene understanding, but also face recognition and logo and object recognition, you will want to get an NVIDIA card. Generally, those need to have at least 8 gigs of VRAM, and anything in the typically 4000 series and up. So something like a 4060 is probably the baseline, but we do have customers going all the way up through like A6000 chips and so on, and even some of the bigger more enterprise style chips. The better the chip, the more the CUDA cores, the faster your AI processing is going to be. Oh, and one more. Can you talk about cloud or offsite availability? How does someone offsite? Okay, and Elisa answered it with reverse proxy. So that's right. I mean, the browser interface, if you're on location, you just type in either the IP address or the host name of the server computer and log in there. If you're remote, you need to use either reverse proxy or VPN. I mean, in theory, you could open up a port, but with the internet the way it is today, that is kind of a non-starter from a internet security standpoint. So what reverse proxy does is it essentially creates a cloud router down into your machine without opening up ports on your local network. So very secure, but also very intuitive. You just log into a server in the sky, basically. And VPNs are probably the most secure, short of just limiting it to on-prem 100%, because with VPN, you literally have to have the software and all the necessary authentication loaded on the client machine, and it creates a secure tunnel to the host system. Historically, the big problem with VPNs, and even today, is that they tend to be a little bit slow. So it'll work, but one of the things you may want to do is when you pick the proxy resolution settings in Axle, because it's defined for each site. So you could pick 500 kilobit proxies or 1 megabit proxies or 2 megabit proxies. But I would say don't go above 2 megabit proxies, because if you're running a VPN, as you stream those proxies through that VPN, it may kind of stutter and slow down. Now, there are really fast VPNs, but just in talking to our customers, especially the ones who are on corporate networks, the average quality of the VPNs out there is pretty mediocre. And that's just, again, security-wise, great, but they're designed for editing spreadsheets, not for editing video. All right, any other questions? We're kind of wrapping up in terms of time. Got about 5 minutes left, but happy to give that back to folks. Again, this has been a really informative session, I hope. And we're all reachable at just first name at our company. So feel free to email any of us with your questions after. The assumption is that this is just the beginning of more dialogue, and the turnout has been great. All the features that Luke showed you are pretty much brand new. They were previewing them at NAB, but this is the first
Yeah.
shipping version of ShotPut Studio with all this functionality in it. And the transcoding, by the way, as a partner, but also to some extent a customer, the transcoding in there and the handling of raw files is just excellent. So if you've been looking for an affordable transcoder to handle raw files, for a few $100 here, you're getting an ingest tool and you're getting that transcoder baked in, which is in this day and age is a bargain.
Real quick to answer that last question, let me share my screen and show you a way you can do that. So you'll go to your settings panel here. So this is what I was referring to earlier. This is queue automation. So you will turn on automatically add drives to source queue. Works with cards too. So you'll plug your card in and it'll automatically be added to the queue. And then you want to begin job upon entry to the queue. So with those two combined, it's going to start this job as long as you have this automation down here turned on. To make sure you're only offloading the video portion, that is a little tougher. If the non-video files included in your Sony cards are consistent, you can go to copy and you can do either ignore file extensions, so put in all the file extensions you don't want copied, or only copy files with extension and just put the extension for the Sony video files themselves, and it'll automatically skip over all the non-video files that way.
That is a huge feature, by the way. I can't tell you how many of our customers have huge file systems full of all those folder trees from XDCAM. And it's just like layer upon layer of stuff. And then there's the video file, just buried in there. So to be able to just bring in the video file is actually pretty huge, I think, for a lot of people. And of course, I assume you could create two workflows, one to copy just the video file and one to create an archival copy of the entire folder tree from right.
Yep.
So you could just
Yeah, that'd
send
be doable.
send them each to one place, which would be very cool. All right. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, everybody, again. And thanks again to Luke and Elisa for the demos and answers to questions. And look forward to further conversations.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.